Hey everyone, welcome to the channel. All things Middle-earth here with a video looking at the commander system in PBE and how it is different from the main game that we know. One of the notable things being the fact that there are no sub-skills. There are also other things we're talking about, like the new stats on commanders, as well as formations with commanders and how troops go on. It's a little bit different, so stay tuned. A breakdown of the commander system in PBE coming up in just 1 second. Okay, starting out, I'll just say very, very quickly, 10 seconds. I did most of my ranting in the last video. Please be constructive with the things you're going to say. You don't have to like it. I'm okay if you don't like it, but let me know why you don't like it, and just beyond, like, I don't like it because this is stupid. Like, just give me a little bit to work with so we can have some conversations and provide feedback. This is a test server. It's not live in the game. The devs have implemented this server and expressed a desire to collect feedback so they can, choose what to implement. So that's my understanding, and that's where I'm going to, that's where my mind's going to be until they prove otherwise. Now, if they don't take feedback, yes, we'll have a different conversation, and I'll be the first one posting a rant video and calling them out. But for now, they've expressed a desire to have feedback and provided us a system to test things, which is really cool, and I think a huge step forward. So if you don't like it, totally fine. Just give me a little bit to work with on why you don't like it, and we'll be fine. So anyway, just wanted to get that out of the way. Let's have some constructive conversations on whether you like it or don't like it and reasons behind it. But starting out with the commanders, I do want to look at the stats first. As you can see, if you played the game at all, this looks a little bit different. There's a few more things here. I don't truthfully know if the purpose here is to simplify things or just change the language, but it seems a little bit unnecessarily complicated to me. So starting out at the very top here, we have leadership, which is effectively command. It's how many troops can be in your formation. So to me, it's very confusing because this is now leadership and there is command down here, which means something else. So that's one of my gripes, is that they should not change what words mean. And like have them mean it. Just don't do it. It's very confusing. So that would be one thing already. It's just, if you want to have command, which we'll look at in a second, mean something else, just name it something else. So anyway, leadership is command now. We still have the same respect system. You don't have your commander types anymore, like leadership, strategist, so on and so forth. You still have your standard commander levels. And this is where things get a little bit different. Instead of having your might, focus, and speed down here, we have damage, which says determines ability to inflict all types of damage. We have HP, which says determines the total amount of damage a unit can take. We then have command, which is increase the attack and defense of the commander's formation. So the troops, their attack and defense are raising based on the command, which again, just use a different word. I feel like it's confusing to change command to something else. So that's that, but that's command. And then down here we have attack, so you can see what the actual attack stat is. So attack affects ability to inflict physical damage. Defense affects ability to resist physical damage. Focus affects the commander's focus, burn, and poison damage dealt, and reduces the amount of damage they take from the aforementioned damage types. And then speed affects the order in which units move in battle. So a lot of familiar things like being thrown around here, but they've kind of categorized them differently. I don't see a whole lot of pros to changing this personally. If you guys do, let me know down below. But to me, it seems like they wanted the terminology to be different. Maybe if you're a new player coming in, it was explained, it would make more sense. But I don't see a lot of reason. This doesn't add a whole lot, in my opinion, to like the overall balance. Like I do see some of that with the gear changes. This just seems kind of unnecessarily complicated, but that's just me. So that is the first thing, the kind of stats and how they've changed what some things mean and just what things are called on commanders. Next up is unique equipment. Now I talked about this in the last video, so I'll just touch on it very, very quickly, but commanders can have a unique equipment equipped in addition to the rest of their normal 4 gear slots. So I have Glamdring on here with my 4 other pieces. Again, I think it's kind of cool, but I do think there could be a gap between players if you're spinning or not spinning. So my feedback in the last video and in stream was just if they limit this to like 1 per tier or 1 per type, I think it could be totally fine. To where over time, even if it's free to play, you can get a tier 1 or tier 2 unique item and get more use out of it. I think it could be cool. So again, I'm curious what people think, because I've seen very mixed reviews on this, but you can equip a unique item in addition to the rest of your gear on commanders. Now, the next major thing I showed at the very beginning is the lack of sub skills here in trees. Now, some of them are more different than others, so I'll go through Gandalf the White as an example, and if you want to cross-reference it, you're welcome to. But basically, how I am seeing this is that they kind of took the sub skills and just crunched them into the title as, I think, a way to just simplify how builds are done in this game. So instead of having to say, okay, put points in the top R1 into the white and then go into, whatever, and then go into this one, there's just 4 titles, and at different levels, at level 5 and at level 10, you unlock different things. So the white says deal 360% focus damage once to 2 enemy formations. This is maxed out. Level 5 is giving the commander 5 more focus, and level 10 is giving me a 25% chance to stun the target. So the white has changed significantly, because typically how the white works is there's a chance that you can kind of, after you deal damage, the white will trigger and you can kind of get this effect going, which is the whole reason Glamdring is really good, because Back to the Shadow makes the white trigger, and there's just like this, perpetual effect of extra damage going out with Gandalf the White. So the white has kind of significantly changed, which is not potentially great if you're a Gandalf the White owner. For me, that's why I got it as unique. So if something like that were to go through, I'd probably be looking for a different unique, but that's just just kind of side thought there. So anyway, that's the white. Next up, we have Wizard, which has a damage dealing, deals damage 162 at level 6. And then it deals damage to 1 to 2 formations. At level 5, this damage causes the target's defense to go -10. And then in addition, at level 10, focus damage dealt plus 5% for 1 round. So Wizard's a little different too. Before, Wizard was a round 1 stun guaranteed at one point. And then there was Surge down here. And so again, a little bit different for Wizard as well. White Council says 3 allied formations receive, again, this is not upgraded right now, so they receive 1.8% less damage from the first 3 hits taken, effect modified by focus stat. And then at the max level, it's going to say effect instances increased to 4. So pretty similar for White Council, but there's no longer a high alert or champion of the light here specifically mentioned. Just kind of overall damage reduction for all of your formations. And last but not least, we do have White Rider, which is first 3 rounds damage received by 2 enemy formations plus 1.5. Durations increase to 4 rounds at level 5, and at level 10, the number of targets increases to 3 formations. I keep saying formation, so if you're lost, hang with me, because we're going to look at that just in a second here. But just wanted to go through and show a full kit, so if you want to kind of compare and see, you can see that there are some differences. It looks pretty similar, but there are changes. Again, potentially the goal here is to simplify just the whole build structure, so it's a little bit easier to just choose what to do. The other thing is this might be just their way of balancing different commanders, so maybe some other ones are more usable and some of the more meta commanders are a little bit less overpowered. But I think that's going to take us some time to go through and see what the actual changes are statistically and see what that means. So but that is the change here proposed in PBE, is that there won't be sub skills, and you unlock kind of the sub skills or whatever at levels 5 and 10. There are 3 points apiece to upgrade, so you need 30 points to max one out. So yeah, again, respect is still, there's no change to respect or lack of a need for it. You'd still use extra respect to have more points, but that is kind of a quick glance at the skill changes. Now, last but not least, and this is where we get into the formations. This could probably be its own video, but I thought it made sense to do it with the commanders because they are kind of closely involved, obviously. So if we go to army, a little bit different here. We don't just pick one commander and put our troops on. We're going to put a commander out. In this example, I'll put Gandalf the White out here. We see his health. The commanders do have HP. Again, we might get into that a little bit later, trying to just keep this a little bit simple here. But we put the commander down, and then we can select a troop and put them on that commander. And you can only do one troop type. And we hit the check mark, and you see these formations open up behind, where if we click on them, we can then put another commander out, hit the arrows, and put a troop type, a single one, on that commander. And we can do that. Right now, all I can see is that this is going to be 4 commanders or 4 formations total. But there was a whole Revelations post where they talked about there being up to like 9 commanders. I don't know what the case will be there. So this is one of those things I think we'll update on as we get more information. But in theory, these are 4 different formations. You can kind of think of it as like each of these different areas just being a different troop type. Like you'd have 3 before, now there's 4. And there's a commander representing them, which I like and don't like. It gives me Rangers Rise vibes with the whole deputy commander. But it's not just these commanders being here and providing skills. They're leading a specific troop type. So again, Gandalf the White in his kit, where he said, your 3 of your formations have reduced damage, or 3 of the enemy formations increase damage. This is what it's talking about when it's talking about formations. So I think it's kind of interesting. It's, again, a lot of these things I think we need more time to play around with and see how they actually work. I just want to show you guys what it actually looks like in game with this. Something we did talk about a lot on stream was I do think certain commanders could be more viable with this system, as well as there being a little bit more like lore thematicness to it, or whatever you want to call it. And if I can find him, Gil was an example we talked about on stream. Again, we don't have elves, but just pretend with me here for a second. So let me pull up Gil. and show you what I mean about it being potentially more like RP friendly or thematic, which I do like. So an ability like High King says for the first 5 rounds, attack and defense of elven units in 3 allied formations, plus 14.4, and that goes up a little bit more. And then attack of elves plus 3 and increase the number of formations to 4. So this ability maxed out will affect all of your formations. So in theory, it would make sense if you're running Gil or other commanders like that who are kind of race specific, that you would also run other commanders who would run an elven troop type. So it would, you know, you might see Gil running with Haldir and Thranduil and whoever else it is, because they're all kind of best used with that troop type, and they're all adding things to that. So it kind of like brings cohesion to these different commanders being used together, which I think is interesting. I'm honestly very undecided on it. So I think at the very least, it's just interesting. What I would like to see is potentially if that made other less usable commanders more viable. I think that'd be cool. So, you know, now if there's an elven commander who wasn't maybe great on their own, maybe they fit into this formation system because they're getting boosts from a commander, but also adding to it. I'm just kind of throwing it all out there. This is very, very new stuff. So just want to show you guys, but I do think there is some kind of potential for some cool like RP thematicness. And it's the same thing for like mounted commanders. If you look at the mounted commanders, a lot of the stuff they do has to do with other mounted troops doing things. Rohirrim, when mounted units attack in 3 allied formations, attack plus 0.5. So Eowyn, if she's running mounted units, is going to want to be in formation with other commanders running mounted units. So I think it's interesting. There's cohesion there, but that's just my first thought at it. Otherwise, it does seem a little bit confusing. Seems a little bit like Ranger's Rise, and I don't love that. And I don't know how many formations there can be. Right now, it just looks like 4. I cannot see an area that I can upgrade my formations more. My barracks is at 16, and it's just stayed at increase the number of formations in your army to 3. It's just stayed there the whole time. And I don't think it's just going to shoot up all of a sudden from 16 to 20. As you can see, going to 17, it doesn't increase it. So maybe they'll add that later. Maybe that was teased incorrectly. I don't know. But I will say the idea of having 9 commanders in a formation seems like a bit much, and it seems like less of like a strategic battle against commanders and more of like a big team battle where you're just throwing everything in there and you have like counters for everything. So I don't love the idea of 9 just at first glance, but again, that is the formations for commanders, at least a little bit explained. But like I said, I'd love to hear what you guys think down in the comments below. Do you like these things? Do you not like them? I see pros and cons with a lot of them. I do think some of them are very drastically changed to try and balance the environment here that we're seeing. And I think that's made it look very complicated, which I don't like, but I'm willing to try things out and see what the kind of like intended use is, which is kind of what we're looking into now. So I do want to have some conversations. Let me know what you guys think down below, but that'll do it for a video on the commander. Stay tuned because we got more videos coming on different aspects of PBE, like the new energy system. There's no more stamina on commanders. You may have noticed that's not here. So you want to make sure you don't miss that. Make sure you're subscribed. But that'll do it from this one, and I'll see you guys in a future video.